a couple of major painkillers.
Everybody, this is Joe.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
He's in charge of the museum restoration. And
Yeah.
he's going to be taking us on a little time trip today.
Yes. Hopefully. Yeah. We're not quite that good. Battery Osgood Farley National Register site. This facility is part of a much larger fortification that was built to defend the Los Angeles harbor against attack by a foreign power. Yes, the Canadians, absolutely. And in an earlier generation of these batteries, these tubes were actually embedded in the concrete. And what they found is every time you'd fire the cannons, the concussion and the vibration through the concrete would blow out the ears of whoever happened to be listening on the other end of them. So by moving them outside the wall and actually putting them here, it made them, first of all, more serviceable if one broke. But two, it eliminated that vibration problem, and now the tubes remain completely usable throughout the whole facility. So.
Those exciting people out, not in.
Is this how you get the sanctuary?
Logan, did you bring on the key?
Protein from the sea. She did the job with
Oh, you ruined it.
I ruined it. Well, you can't have nice stuff. Let's go. Come on. Adventure dude. Are you really the last one?
I'm the last one.
We've got another device called the percentage corrector here on the floor. A series of charts and other equipment on the walls, along with telephones that are connected to all of the outside world. So this was kind of a really happening place, you know. You had to be able to act quickly. There's the two phones on the wall here are linked to the observation stations. So those that information's coming in. The guys that are working the table have got to actually be plotting and tracking the ships. They're calling coordinates from the board off to the other equipment, who are then operating this wheeled rack that was over the pit that you just came out of, which would transfer the firing coordinates out to the guns. We'd also be reading them off through the telephone systems, and so this room, everybody had to be amazingly focused on their work. And obviously, there's about as many people in here today as there would be during full service practice. So it's, you know, everything's cramped, everybody's working around. Guns, these 14-inch cannons, the shell is way too heavy in order to be able to use a lift type system. Also, we wanted to be able to provide more protection for the magazines. So moving the cannons to either end of the building allows a much more efficient ammunition processing, essentially, because everything's on one level. You don't have to worry about mechanical systems to raise shells. There was, listen, I can actually get volunteers now that can actually drive a stick shift. This guy is actually in the Army National Guard, and all of the vehicles are automatic. They don't try to teach him how to use a stick. I can't understand that anymore.
She can do it.
It should be a required training, but you know, yeah. All right. As I mentioned before, Battery Osgood Farley is on the National Register of Historic Places. The reason is that this is the best preserved coastal defense battery in the continental United States. It's the best preserved one left in the world, actually. It's the only one that is still operating on its original electrical system, original plumbing, original sewer system. Has 99% of all the doors still intact, and windows have just recently been completely restored throughout the battery. It is, other than missing the guns, still in serviceable condition. So it's extremely unique. And if you ever get out around the country and get to visit some of these other sites, you'll really see what I mean. There's concrete is sprawling and falling apart, and you know, nothing works. Most of the doors are gone. Most of the windows have disappeared. So this really is a unique treasure in the amount of fabric that's still here. Yeah.
I noticed the standard government sign about no petitioning. And
Yes.
Is this still an active military base? Or
Yes and no. The upper reservation of Fort MacArthur. Fort MacArthur is a split-level fort. Okay. There is still an active component to it, which is the part of the property on Pacific Avenue. It's the oldest part of the post. It's used by the Air Force today as housing and administration for the LA Air Force Base in El Segundo. This property was deeded to the City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks in 1976, okay, under a special revision clause, or a reversion clause they call it. In the event of national emergency, the federal government may take this property back over at any time. So it's actually named after Lieutenant General Arthur MacArthur, which is, that's Douglas's dad. The Lieutenant General was a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient for his fighting in the Civil War at a place called Missionary Ridge. Probably get some tables out for here because they have lunch. Tour enough to fit the 20 people that are here. Okay. So, you know, that's 20, 25 people. All right. And then after lunch is over, we'll find some. A lot of the communications technology that we have today, that we take for granted today, didn't exist. A lot of us could get, you know, for instance, what happened on 9/11, live via satellite, through the newspaper, on your telephone, through any number of other sources. Well, during the 1940s, the only way to communicate with Hawaii, you had three choices. If you were here on the mainland or if you were on the islands, wanted to communicate back over here, you could write a letter that would get on a ship. The ship would go to San Francisco and it would get out into the U.S. Postal Service. You could write an airmail that would go on an airplane. You could send a telegraph through one single cable that ran from San Francisco to Honolulu.
So smoke signals
smoke signals are kind of out. It's a little bit distant for that. And if the atmospheric conditions were just right, you could use radio to be able to communicate. It didn't happen very often. Most of the time you had to use telegraph. So getting information conveyed was quite difficult, and because after December 7th, of course, we're at war, the amount of information we want to distribute, because everybody's listening, has gone down quite a bit. You know, a lot of restrictions were put on private communication and government communication and the newspapers. The newspapers you've seen here are the first official photographs released of the Pearl Harbor attack. Okay, they're all dated 1 year later. Okay, it took a year before the U.S. population got to see what really happened over there. Okay. All right, we'll go through the next passageway here. This leads over to Battery Farley. It is longer than it looks. You're going about 350 feet. It's a straight shot. There's a light on at the end of the tunnel. You should be able to find yourselves in the corner.
It's kind of a release farm before we start.
I know, really.
Where's Jerry at? Oh, you already left. Hey, Jerry, you go first. You go first.
Why, I'm taller? Very dangerous. Oh, yes. Yeah. I bet.